All right, this weekend, the fake and, well, slowly deteriorating New York Times published a confidential memo from President Trump's attorneys to the Office of the Special Counsel. Now, if leaked by someone on Mueller's team, this is a huge criminal breach of trust. Mayor Giuliani thinks that's a fact. Now, but while neither the left nor the mainstream media seem to care about why a confidential letter was leaked from Robert Mueller's office to the press, many liberals are now feigning their predictable moral outrage over the memo's contents, especially this paragraph that details the legal team's view of obstruction and the president's power to pardon. Quote, the president's actions here, by virtue of his position as the chief law enforcement officer, could neither constitutionally nor legally constitute obstruction because that would amount to him obstructing himself and that he could, if he wished, terminate the inquiry or even exercise the power to pardon if he so desired. Now, this echoes exactly what attorney after attorney after attorney have been telling you right here on this program now for months. And as President Donald Trump and his legal team, they do have the power to literally order the Department of Justice to actually initiate an investigation, end an investigation, and by the way, for any reason. That is within the president's constitutional authority. Even the DOJ admits they can't charge a sitting president with obstruction. So why are we talking about it? Now, also, the president's power to pardon, even himself, it is an absolute power. And over the weekend, look at that guy there. You see him? Well, his hair's a little grayer now, but that's Clinton sycophant turned so-called journalist for ABC News, Georgie Stephanopoulos. Now, you can see him there whispering in Bill Clinton's ears. Well, yesterday, Stephanopoulos, he asked Rudy Giuliani, Donald Trump's attorney, former New York City mayor, what is a completely nonsensical, totally hypothetical, and frankly ridiculous question about this very concept. It is irrelevant to everything in the reality that is happening. Take a look.
Do you and the president's attorneys believe the president has the power to pardon himself?
He's not, but he probably does. I mean, he has no intention of pardoning himself, but he probably does. It doesn't say he can't. I mean, that's another really interesting constitutional argument. Can the president pardon himself?
You think it's an open question?
I used to run the pardon attorney. It would be an open question. I think it would probably get answered by, gosh, that's what the Constitution says, and if you want to change it, change it. But, yeah.
A lot of focus on the president.
I think the political ramifications of that would be tough. Pardoning other people is one thing. Pardoning yourself is another.
Rudy Giuliani was kind of laughing about it. Well, he does have the power, but that's not going to happen. And look at how the media's reacted. And little Georgie Stephanopoulos acts all bewildered. This is not a new concept. We'll take you back. Let's go down memory lane. 2016. Then candidate Hillary Clinton, remember hot water over a gross, blatant misuse of classified information on the mom and pop bathroom closet server? Well, many were actually arguing, thinking that she was going to be elected president, that she, if she was, could rightfully pardon herself. Let's look at this headline from Dan Abrams' Law and Crime website. If Hillary Clinton is indicted, well, President Clinton could pardon herself and Congress might be helpless. And this article from the Wall Street Journal, quote, the short answer to whether the Constitution permits self-pardoning is yes, it probably does. That seems to be the prevailing, but by no means unanimous opinion among legal experts. Now, of course, that ridiculous question to Giuliani came from the same guy who made a name for himself as being Bill Clinton's political hitman during his run for the president. This is now the spokesman and news person for ABC News. He's no Peter Jennings. Take a look.
What is names, addresses? I can send you a fax with names, addresses, phone numbers of who you had an affair with. It wouldn't make it true. It is completely if you went on the radio and said that Bill Clinton is the father of an illegitimate black child, you would be laughed at. People would think you're crazy. I guarantee you that if you do this, you'll never work in Democratic politics again. Maybe you don't want to. I'm not saying it matters. You will be embarrassed before the National Press Corps. People will think, nobody will believe you, and people will think you're scummy.
Oh, George looks so fair and unbiased. He seems like a real journalist in that video. Now, meanwhile, Rudy Giuliani's comments were clearly based on legal precedent. And earlier today, the president himself backed up his legal counsel. He tweeted out, quote, as has been stated by numerous legal scholars, I have the absolute right to pardon myself, but why would I do that when I've done nothing wrong? Which brings us to a very important point. This phony, feigned, so-called outrage from the left and the media and other anti-Trump groupies is over something that has not happened and something that will not happen because President Trump has done nothing wrong, and it was a hypothetical that Rudy Giuliani was actually laughing at. Still, the media's echo chamber blowing up over something rooted in legal precedent, backed up by real constitutional scholars, and yet something that has not ever happened and probably won't. Take a look at the media once again making much ado about absolutely nothing, and watch this, knowing this is the same media as you watch this, totally missing in action on the biggest story in their lifetimes, which is the largest, biggest abuse of power corruption scandal in U.S. history. They don't talk about that. This is what they focus on.
A stunning statement here, Poppy, from the president openly declaring that he believes he is above the law.
Try to picture an ordinary criminal who committed a crime saying that. I can do whatever I want, and by the way, I'll pardon myself. You sound like you're guilty when you say that.
Think about what we're talking about. The president all morning is basically, again, saying the president of the United States is above the law and is not required to comply with the Constitution or the laws of the United States. I mean, that is staggering.
They are kidding themselves and will be let down horribly if they ever decide to try this on, to take this and put wheels on this and take it out for a spin to the United States Supreme Court. If you don't believe me, go to the Supreme Court. You may get one, you may get two votes. That's it. You will be run over.
If the President of the United States is talking about pardoning himself, about not being indicted, you have to look at what the political environment would be, what political environment would be created by that. We're really talking about the end of his presidency. If you're talking about the President of the United States saying, I'm going to pardon myself, even if Republicans try to protect him, you're talking about the collapse in many ways of the institutions of this republic.
Another week, more hysteria, more feigned moral outrage, another fake scandal pushed from the same people that have been wrong for a year and a half, and they yet want you to trust them. No wonder their approval ratings are in the gutter, almost at single digits, and journalism in this country is dead and buried. Also tonight, we have more evidence your deep state is crumbling right before our eyes. Look at this CBS News poll. Americans, they've lost confidence in Robert Mueller's probe, or so-called probe. They agree with President Trump. The witch hunt needs to end. Michael Barone now writing, quote, Obama's spying scandal is starting to look a lot like Watergate. I keep telling you it's Watergate on steroids. Former Attorney General Michael Mukasey, smart man, dressing down one former deep state operative at the center of all of this. Look at what he says about Brennan. Take a look.
John Brennan is going to have a lot to answer for when this is over, because his participation in, or the participation of the CIA in providing an informant to be used in connection with the Mueller investigation, I think is a story that hasn't yet been told. The guy who was the informant, was a CIA asset, not an FBI asset. And I would like to know how a CIA asset suddenly becomes an FBI informant. Who organized that? Who paid him? And was John Brennan running some kind of multi-agency operation relating to the Trump campaign? I don't know that he has any credentials as a mind reader or as a psychoanalyst to be analyzing the president's motives. But his own performance is certainly nothing to write home about.
And new developments tonight surrounding the ongoing obstruction from the Department of Justice. This is a sad moment in American history. Now, the House Intel Committee Chairman Devin Nunes gave an update on the DOJ stonewalling. He had some really strong words for his colleague, especially House Oversight Committee Chairman Trey Gowdy, who was so dead wrong last week, unfortunately, and he didn't even have all the information that he needed before he made these comments. Now, take a look at what he said to our friend Maria Bartiromo.
We should have been provided all of this information that we've been asking for over and over and over again. We issued a new subpoena, and so now we've been waiting. We've attended two briefings. They were very small briefings, not a lot of information, but we were happy. It was progress. We believe that there are some documents, information that we will review this week. What I would say is if you don't have anything to hide, the Deputy Attorney General knows that Mr. Gowdy would love to exonerate the Department of Justice and the FBI. And we got to be very careful because the media has tried to make a bigger deal about this than what it is. What Trey Gowdy is specifically talking about is this small slice of the investigation that we're looking at as it relates to whether or not an informant or informants were used. That's what he's referring to when he talks about that the president's not a target of this investigation. I believe that Mr. Gowdy knows very well, and he's been instrumental in helping us get to the bottom of the FISA abuse that did occur.
We have more updates on the swamp each night as we peel back the layers of that onion of the deep state and dismantle it, and we're doing it night by night, brick by brick. All right, we have to turn our attention, believe it or not, to former President Bill Clinton. Back in the news, like an unwanted house guest that overstayed his welcome by, let's say, a few decades. Bill Clinton is back in the public spotlight, obviously making money, pushing a brand new book, and it's off to a horrible start. So what the grandfather, we can call him the grandfather of today's Me Too movement, Clinton failed to realize is that it's no longer 1996. And all his buddies in the mainstream media can no longer afford to give him the free pass on his history of rampant, horrific sexual misconduct. During an interview with NBC News, the former president was finally pressed. Now, they could have done this before the election, but of course they wanted Hillary to win. But he was pressed on how he mishandled the Monica Lewinsky scandal. And almost unbelievably, Clinton, who was impeached for lying under oath, said he did the right thing. Remember, Paula Jones said he dropped his pants and got naked in front of her. We know what Juanita Broderick charged him with rape. Kathleen Willey groping, grabbing, fondling, touching against her will in the Oval Office. And then, of course, Monica. Watch this.
Clinton says critics are now pouncing in light of the Me Too movement, but he stands by his decision to fight impeachment rather than resign.
So a lot of the facts have been conveniently omitted to make the story work. But I think partly because they're frustrated that they got all these serious allegations against the current occupant of the Oval Office, and his voters don't seem to care. I think I did the right thing. I defended the Constitution.
Yeah? What fact was omitted? Please tell us, because let's see, you lost your law license, you lost a judgment in the case of Paula Jones and paid money, and yeah, you were impeached. Finally, you got to give some credit to the mainstream media. Well, they obviously lost sight of what their usual bias is. In this case, it was NBC. Craig Melvin continued to press Clinton, and the former president just could not take it, handle it, or even believe it. He's living back in 1996. Take a look.
Do you think differently or feel more responsibility?
No, I felt terrible then, and I came to grips with it.
Did you ever apologize to him?
No, yes, and nobody believes that I got out of that for free. I left the White House $16 million in debt. But you typically have ignored gaping facts in describing this, and I bet you don't even know them.
Do you feel like you owe her an apology?
No, I do. I do not. I've never talked to her. But I did say publicly on more than one occasion that I was sorry. I dealt with it 20 years ago plus, and the American people, 2/3 of them stayed with me, and I've tried to do a good job since then with my life and with my work. That's all I have to say to you.
Remember, he once said, "We were alone," but I never really thought we were alone. Me and Monica, you know, I looked out the window as a girl on a bicycle, so as long as there's somebody else out there in the world, you're never really alone, are you? Did not have sex with that woman, not a single time. For years, both Bill and Hillary Clinton, they've acted above the law. The complicit media gave them a pass. They ignored all of this in the 2016 election. And Bill Clinton's sick, perverted history of sexual misconduct, including all of these allegations. We've interviewed these women, even rape, have gone unpunished. And the media didn't bring it up in 2016 because they wanted her elected. And by the way, we all know Hillary was gifted leniency by James Comey after she committed felonies, violated the Espionage Act, deleted 33,000 subpoenaed emails, acid washed her hard drive, and broke up her devices with a hammer or had an aide do it. Do you think you or any other ordinary, everyday American would be given a pass by law enforcement if you did what Hillary Clinton did or did what Bill Clinton did? I doubt it. And what about the Clinton campaign paying a foreign spy to cook up unverified, untrue, proven false in most cases, Russian intelligence to use as an research against President Trump? Anyone in the Clinton campaign under investigation for that Russian collusion? No, the Mueller witch hunt is only investigating Trump associates. We have a two-tiered justice system. This is the danger in this country today. If we're going to remain a constitutional republic, one that benefits the Clinton at every turn, and they have laughed all the way to the bank. And by the way, you should all be outraged. Now, despite all of this, we do have amazing news to share with you tonight. It is now the 500th day since Donald Trump was inaugurated, and after months of predictions that a Trump presidency would leave this country in ruins, well, it is now undeniable that the entire world is seeing massive, serious progress under the president's leadership. We have pending talks with the North Korean dictator. That's just days away. We're going to talk about the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. That now weighs in the balance in the interim. Let's see. Kim Jong-un has halted all of his missile tests. No more missiles being fired over Japan in the interim. He literally is destroying one of his nuclear test sites. It's been disabled. Don't forget, 3 American hostages were also returned, and he walked over to the DMZ into the arms of the South Korean president. All good news. Not a dime paid, like in the case of Obama or Clinton, in showing peace through strength works. And also breaking today, 3 longtime North Korean generals have been fired by Kim Jong-un, another good potential sign of North Korea's commitment towards serious reform. And meanwhile, on day 500, the Trump presidency, let's see, we've seen so many great developments right here at home. We don't even have the time to list them. Look at the side of your screen. Nearly 3 million plus jobs have been created, 300,000 in manufacturing alone. The unemployment rate, an almost unprecedented 3.8%, the lowest in 50 years. We have for African Americans all-time low unemployment rate. Same with Hispanic Americans. Same for women in the workplace. 14 state record lows as it relates to unemployment. Consumer confidence, 17-year high. Now, this after passing a historic $3.7 trillion tax cut and cutting 22 regulations for every new one enacted. And even the New York Times, of all places, writing, we ran out of words to describe how good these job numbers are. And fake news CNN even had to report that the unemployment rate matches its lowest point in half a century. Other accomplishments include the president keeping his promise. The U.S. Embassy has moved to Jerusalem in Israel, getting America out of that horrific Iranian nuclear deal. And you can't forget about Trump's actions against Assad, ISIS, and Vladimir Putin. And you likely won't hear about this in the press, but the construction of that wall on the southern border of this country, yeah, it started in San Diego. And remember, the successful appointment of Neil Gorsuch, an originalist, to the Supreme Court, as promised. I could go on and on. It'll take up the whole show. Look at Zogby. More Americans now believe they're much better off than when Donald Trump took office. But yet the elites in this country, the Democrats, the media, Hollywood, and others all warning you that President Trump would be bad for America. You knew better. Bad for the world. You knew better. In fact, these people were actively and are actively rooting for the president and the country to fail so they can get power back. What they don't understand is that Americans are fed up with both parties. They're disgusted. So they purposefully elected an iconoclast, a disruptor, and someone that they knew would get results and make decisions and move at the speed of Trump. And in his first 500 days, the president, he has proved his naysayers wrong. So tonight, an important question to ask: who do you trust? The anti-Trump sycophants who have been wrong over and over and over again, actively now in the position of having to root for failure of the president? That means failure for the country. And by the way, a guy that has gotten results. Tonight, the answer to this question is clear. Everyone in America is reaping the rewards. You, the American people, made the right decision.